Hi, it's Jeff, and welcome to this final video in our series of 4 free videos where we've been looking at the essential facts you need to consider before deciding to become a driving instructor. As I promised in this video, we're going to be having a look at the numbers in a bit more detail in terms of what you can potentially earn as a driving instructor. And I'm going to look at 3 examples. So example A is going to be if you're working for a franchise and they are providing you with all of your students and also leasing you a car in which to teach, plus back office support, etc. Example B also again is going to be a franchise model with the same features and benefits as example A, with the exception that you would source your own vehicle, which is an option that many driving schools are happy to offer you for a lower franchise fee. And then the final model or final example should I say, is example C, where I'll be looking at what your potential earnings can be if you set up on your own and you work as an independent instructor, sourcing your own vehicle and also sourcing your own students. Also, for the sake of this particular example of figures, I'm using 2 models, so to speak. So model 1 is where you would be teaching for 40 hours a week, which equates to being out of the house and on the road for nearer 50 hours per week, because obviously you need a bit of time in between each lesson. And the other model is where you're teaching for 30 hours a week, which in a similar vein would mean you're out of the house on the road working nearer 40 hours a week. Okay, so I think they're sort of quite good full-time comparisons to, if you like, most standard Monday to Friday 9 to 5 type jobs. Also, for the sake of these figures, I am basing everything on charging a £32 per hour lesson fee. Now, currently I charge £35 an hour, and I know many other instructors do, but also I know that in some areas of the country then the rates are a little bit lower, sometimes around about £30 an hour. So I thought I'd sort of pitch my figure somewhere in the middle and base everything on £32 an hour, which I don't think is unreasonable at all. So let's delve into the figures then. You're going to see some of them come up on screen, but I have put a link below where you can have a look at the figures in a lot more granular detail. So the ones that I'm going to talk through now are really like the headline figures, so to speak. Okay, so first of all, let's have a look at what your annual income is likely to be if you're able to teach and charge at £32 an hour and you're teaching 40 hours a week. So that would generate a weekly income of £1,280, which then translates to an annual income, assuming you're going to work 48 weeks of the year, therefore take 4 weeks off on holiday, of £61,440. Model 2, where you'd be teaching 30 hours a week, then your weekly income would be £960, giving you an annual income again over 48 weeks of £46,080. Now, before you get too excited about those headline figures, let's have a look at what life looks like once you deduct your operating expenses. So if you are working with a driving school under their franchise agreement and they're providing you with all of the students you need and they're leasing you a dual controlled car, which of course is yours to use outside of lessons as well, then as we just stated, 40 hours teaching a week gives you an annual income of £61,440. However, you then need to deduct from that, after taking away your franchise fees and other related business expenses, of annual cost of circa £20,000, leaving you with an annual profit before tax and national insurance of £41,440. Okay. Compared to that, if you're teaching 30 hours a week, which, just to remind you, means you're going to be out on the road for nearer 40 hours a week, then your annual income, as previously stated, will be £46,080. You need to then deduct your franchise fees and other operating costs from that, which on my example is £18,080, leaving you with an annual profit before needing to pay tax and national insurance of £28,000. So right off the bat, we can see that the statement that's often put out there by driving schools, that you can generate an income in excess of £40,000, is factually true. That said, I wouldn't say it's necessarily easy to teach 40 hours a week, and you're probably going to need somewhere between 25 to 30 students at any one time to be generating that sort of level of income, because that's the number of students you're going to need to be able to teach for around about 40 hours a week. But it is possible. Okay, now let's have a look at example B. Again, this is the franchise model, but the difference with this one is that you're going to be sourcing your own car. Okay, so again, for the sake of this exercise, I've assumed that you are going to lease your own vehicle. So again, teaching hours, 40 hours a week, gives you an annual income as previous, £61,440. Annual costs of £21,538, leaving you with an annual profit of £39,902. So you're a little bit worse off if you are sourcing your own vehicle than you would be by taking a vehicle through the driving school. But it's not a lot of difference, and obviously if you wanted to use your own vehicle, if you have one, and get that retrofitted with dual controls, then that's certainly going to reduce your operating expenses quite considerably, albeit at some point obviously you will need to replace that car, but then you don't need to replace it with a brand new vehicle. You could source a second-hand vehicle that's maybe 3, 4, 5 years old. As long as it's presentable inside and out and runs pretty smoothly and has got too higher mileage on it, then believe you me, your students really aren't going to be too fussed whether you're driving around in a brand new vehicle or not. Now let's have a look at the same example, working for a franchise but sourcing your own vehicle, working or teaching, should I say, 30 hours a week this time. So again, generating an annual income of £46,080. You got annual costs of £18,470, leaving you with an annual profit before having to pay tax and national insurance of £27,610. And then finally, let's have a look at what I call the independent model. So this is sort of example C. Okay, that's where you're doing everything really. You're sourcing your own students, you're sourcing your own vehicle, and again, obviously all of the other associated operating expenses. So teaching hours under the independent example, 40 hours per week, gives you, of course, the same annual income of £61,440. Your annual costs are going to be a fair bit less. So using figures that are sort of real and relative to me, I know the annual operating costs are £15,288, leaving you with an annual profit, again before paying tax and national insurance, of £46,152. Compared to that, let's have a look at the model where you're teaching 30 hours a week. Your annual income again is the same as the previous examples, £46,080. Your annual operating costs are going to be a bit less, obviously because you're doing less mileage and therefore paying for less fuel, of £12,420, leaving you with an annual profit before paying tax and national insurance of £33,660. Okay, so I think it's quite clear just by looking at those numbers, which of course will vary, from area to area and person to person. They're not that scientific in so much as, as long as you charge £32 an hour, those are going to be what the figures are. Different franchises come at different driving schools, should I say, charge different amounts for their franchise fees. The example that I've used, which is a real example, I'm not going to name the driving school, but they charge £190 per week if they provide a car and £125 per week if they don't, and all of the other sort of related benefits that you get as part of your franchise outside of the car are exactly the same. And the figures that I've used for the independent model, as I've said, are my own figures, which my wife has kindly produced for me because she does my bookkeeping. So I know I'm quoting reality. So as I say, we can see from that that the independent model certainly is by far the more profitable business model, which is why I think probably around about 2/3 of driving instructors, if not more in the country, operate as independent instructors. That said, I'm not saying that there is no benefit of going down the franchise route, particularly in your sort of early startup period. It may well be worth joining a driving school so you don't have that sort of hassle of having to find your own students, take sales calls, follow-up inquiries, etc., because the office will do a lot of that for you, as long as you join the right school, of course. But if you're looking at doing this as a sort of medium to long-term career, then I would suggest that as soon as you possibly can, go down the independent route. And if you can do it right from the outset, then all the better. And as I have previously stated, if you decide to go down that independent route, then we can certainly help support you in terms of giving you advice and guidance on how to market your own driving school to find students, and how to go about sourcing your own vehicle, sourcing dual controls, getting signage for it if you want to, etc. But I suppose just to sort of underline and highlight for you, please, don't be under the impression that in order to work as a driving instructor, you need to train with a driving school. You absolutely don't. Especially post-COVID, where the demand for driving lessons is through the roof. You can stumble across students who are just desperate to have lessons from anybody who's prepared to teach them. It's not untypical these days for a new student to be searching around for months just trying to find an instructor that's got some space and availability in their diary. If you do decide to go down the independent route, then I think for several years to come at least, you really shouldn't be having too much of a difficulty finding students. Just put out a message on Facebook, and you'll probably receive half a dozen to a dozen inquiries within a matter of days or a couple of weeks. Because there are just so many people out there looking for lessons. Okay, so I do hope these videos have been useful for you. I do think they've covered off pretty much all of the essential facts that I think certainly are critical for you to consider before deciding to sort of jump in with both feet, especially if you're thinking about buying a particularly expensive training course for maybe £1,000, £2,000 or £3,000. You know, I really wouldn't want you to make that sort of commitment only to find out partway through the process that it really isn't for you. It isn't what you expected. Perhaps some of the misleading statements that might have hooked you in, you know, don't come to fruition. You know, the promises aren't delivered on. But unfortunately, you know, legally, the driving school is likely to be well within their rights to keep hold of any training money that you've provided them. So good luck if this is something that you are still very keen on doing. Of course, we've got lots of other information available on our website. Thanks again, and hope to see you again or speak to you in the very near future. Cheers, bye.